Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Know your role and shut your mouth, you jabroni!
Fires upfield into the end zone. It is caught. Jelani Woods, touchdown, INDY!
Yes.
43-point night for Tyrese Halliburton.
How do you like that, partner?
Galloway drives all the way to the hole, throws it up, got it! Indiana's got their first lead of this contest.
It's pretty simple. I win. Google me.
Now, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Hey, welcome aboard. It is Friday. Appreciate you being with us, and I hope you are ready for the weekend. Plenty of action to talk about, plenty of people to talk about it with here on this Friday edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Of course, powered by Andy Moore Honda. Get more to your door with AndyMooreHonda.com and the best in new and used vehicles. They will take care of you like no one else. And, of course, don't forget our friends at Free Think. For those of you in the market for apparel, merchandise, whatnot, Free Think apparel and promotions. It doesn't matter if it's 20 T-shirts for your family reunion or 200 for this summer softball league. Their team of industry experts will work with you to design a professional-looking sales generation web store for you. You don't even have to worry about that for your custom-designed apparel from large corporations to high schools, sport teams, national accounts, and pro-led athletic camps. Free Think Apparel delivers. Visit freethinkapparel.com today and get printing. Welcome aboard on the program today. Bob Kravitz should be joining us. We'll talk about Kentucky's latest anticipated hire, Indiana's needs in basketballs. They hit what I am calling Portalville, USA, and I've renamed it that. I'm going to coin that phrase. So when you start hearing that, you heard it here first. Also, he's got his latest piece is out on Chris Ballard. If he does not succeed, should this be his last year, the Colts have a lot of picks. They've got a pick in each of the 7 rounds, starting at number 15. So all of that and much, much more. And welcome to everybody hitting us up on the Andy Moore Honda hotline. Fred jumping on. He's usually first. Donald, formerly of Southern Indiana, Floyd Central boy. He's down in Atlanta, where we'll be talking about one of Indiana's potential new players coming up. Bob down in Georgetown. Brian, he's where are you in sunny Florida? Because it's not sunny here. Let me tell you, it's a bit nipply. Buffalo Bill down in Jeffersonville. Appreciate you, my friend. Our first recorded listener of the show ever, as we are on our 8th year. And not only that, we won't talk about this enough, but and thanks to all of you. We appreciate everybody listening, no matter how you find us, whether it's on 97.7 The Ref, ESPN down in Evansville, or up in the region on the Voice of the Region, 1230 a.m., 104.7 WJOB, over in Fort Wayne on the Fan, 1380, or Dan and Maringo. And especially all of our viewers and listeners on YouTube across the globe. But we hit 2 million views last October. We're now at 3 million. So thank you guys. 3 million views. I cannot even fathom that. But big thanks to you guys. Mike Shenanigans on. Got his lawn mowed before the eclipse, he said. Well, he'll have another one to mow once this rain ever stops. I want to make sure I don't miss anybody. Russell got his grass done yesterday somehow. I don't know how you managed to do that in between raindrops. There's Creek Walker's been back. He says it's about to happen for the men and the women. We'll find out. Dave from Dagonia Springs, the metropolis of Dagonia Springs, Indiana. Philip, yep, we'll talk about Mr. Pope. There's Mike and Derek from Owensboro, and Rex. How are you, sir? He said it needs to be said for all of those Conwell supporters. Leo would have had better numbers in the same row that Conwell was in, and he is deep on IU bench. Well, I don't know how you can say that. I'm not. Yeah, you've got to have something to be able to back that up. Playing time does not give you the numbers. You've got to actually make it happen. So that's something to discuss, and would be a great discussion. Appreciate you. And jumping on from Yuma. I love Yuma. One of my favorite movie titles. The 310 to Yuma, baby. And I'm sure it's a lot warmer out there in Yuma. One of my favorite places I've ever been in my life was Tombstone, Arizona. I'm a big fan of Western history and whatnot. And great spot to visit. Dwayne on as well from down there in Evansville. Justin. Doug, how are you, sir? It says UK fans have entered the transfer portal over the Mark Pope hiring. Yeah, they're not liking it a lot, but what do they know about coaching? And we'll find out. But that's why fans aren't allowed to make these hires. Just because they want something does not make it so, and does not make it doable. I think that they all wanted Scott Drew, and just like the Louisville job, although it was different, but I'm like, why would he leave Baylor? Give me a reason for him to leave Baylor for Kentucky. Baylor is a better program than Kentucky right now. Baylor is more successful than Kentucky right now. He's being paid pretty damn well right now. He's in a climate that doesn't get cold like it is right now. He's at a place that's not quite the fishbowl. He can win and not win and not be slammed to, people are not clamoring for him to be fired right now. So there's a lot to be talked about there for that. Gritty on Southern Indiana, my butt. There's no way it's sunny down there. Philip, did Louisville get a better hire than Louisville? It's a good question, but the answer is no. I don't think so. But hey, we don't know. That plays out. And it actually, you can't even judge it because it has to run its course for a minute to see who's going to do what. We're going to talk about it. Brian Branham got the crystal ball to Auburn. Nothing on Rice yet beyond speculation. Yeah, we'll talk about some crystal balls. There was one that went out for an Indiana prospect. 5 is on with us as well. How are you, sir? A crystal ball went out in for daggone it. Was it Miles Rice, I believe, maybe? I think one of the top 10. He's the top 10 transfer guard, which Indiana desperately needs. But Washington State, Miles Rice, received a crystal ball from one of the services. And I'm just, and this goes back to what, I've already forgotten who it was that said it. Daggone it. Hey, Doug, how are you as well? Oh, I just saw it. Rex, or maybe it wasn't Rex. I think it was Rex. We appreciate you, Rex, by the way. Listening live, I know that you must be an early riser. He's his numbers are okay. He's he shot 44% on 2 made threes per game. Is that right? Is I reading about the right one? Career high of 31 points. No, that's somebody else. That's Keenan Carlisle. That's who the crystal ball came in for. A day after sources have indicated that Indiana sat in a good spot with Washington State guard Miles Rice, a crystal ball came in for that guy. It appears Indiana is in a good spot for another transfer guard, as this morning a 247 analyst, national analyst, Travis Branham, submitted a crystal ball in favor of Indiana to land Stanford guard Keenan Carlisle. He will be on campus next weekend for Little Five. This is a day after someone had indicated that Indiana is in a good spot for Washington State transfer Miles Rice, as he also has a crystal ball pointing him towards Indiana. We will see. But Carlisle is a former top 60 prospect, played just 1 year at Stanford during his freshman year. Now, the good thing about him is he's got a lot of time left. And so he's not going to be a one and done, more than likely, not looking at these numbers. But he averaged, for a freshman, not bad. Averaged 11.5 points, almost 3 rebounds, almost 3 assists per game. That was only in 23 appearances. He missed the first month of the season, but he hit the ground running and scored in double figures 15 times, including 2 20-point games, and hit 31 points once, which was a career high against, ironically, Washington State. He also scored 28 points in his 4th game. And that was against Arizona, going 9 of 13 from 3 in both of those games. He shot almost 45% on 2 made threes per game. That's not lighting it up. I mean, it's a great percentage, but that's too much of a small sample size. That's Trey Galloway from 2 seasons ago. Doesn't mean a whole lot. His shot fell off. He only shot 20% from 3 on 4 attempts in the final 13 games of the season, totaling just 32% on a year. So it's not making me, if I were a fan, I wouldn't be jumping up and down on that. Carlisle is a terrific athlete and scorer. He has good size, 6'3", 190 pounds. Does a good job getting to the rim, which is very important. Shot 78% from the free throw line while attempting almost 4 free throws per game. Carlisle originally is from the Atlanta area. Was a name that Indiana briefly looked at during his high school recruiting process. He and Rice have a previous relationship from their time in the Atlanta area. Yasir Roseman connected to both of those prospects. That's an area he recruits a lot. Carlisle is ranked the number 10 overall transfer in the 247 transfer rankings. 3 years of eligibility remaining. Like I said, that's a good sign, but it's hard to tell. I'll be honest with you. I'm not going to pretend that I am an expert on that, and I'm definitely going to say I cannot predict the future. So we've got to take a break. Lots more coming up, including Bob Kravitz. Lots more to talk about on the transfer side of things. Zach Osterman with us, Casey Bartley, hopefully, and is Dylan Sinn with us today as well, John?
He is. He'll be joining us here in the first hour.
All right, so perfect. And we'll continue and talk more about this as well. Bob Kravitz up next. Back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by Andy Moore Honda and Free Think. Back right after this.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
In the market.
All right. Let's welcome in Bob Kravitz from bobkravitz.com.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Buffalo Bob.
How are you, buddy?
I'm great. I'm cold. It's rainy and nasty, and
Bob, were people blaming you for the way Purdue lost because of your tweet about how good you were feeling about the Boilers the day before?
Well, that's the last time I make a sober tweet.
Bob, I tried to tell you. I told everybody for a month, and I'll say it again. The reason Purdue would not win a national champion is because the last 5 and now the last 6 have a minimum of 4 NBA draft picks on their roster.
Yep.
Purdue had 1.
And
we saw why.
The margin between the guards was, what was it, 49-12 or something, and 49-17. Their guards outscored Purdue's guards. That was bad.
I'm gonna brag about it too. I'm gonna beat that dead horse into the ground. You know, I never get anything right.
Yeah, when you do, brag about it.
Got to. Nobody else is going to.
Damn right. Damn right. Hey, I'll be right back. I'm just gonna grab a Diet Coke. I got a second, right?
Yeah, you're good.
You got all the time you need, bro.
All right. I'll be 1 second.
Excuse me.
I need to keep a microwave in the studio so I can rewarm my coffee.
Hey, one thing that will be cool when the Indiana Kentucky series returns is that, I mean, unless something happens between now and next year, the 2 coaches will have formally played in that rivalry as well as now be coaching in it.
Well, you don't know that.
What? That's why I said unless something happens between now and the next year.
Gotcha.
Because there is one more buffer year before that series resets. Basically, Mike Woodson has to not suck. Maybe do a little more than not suck.
Hello, friends.
Hello, friends.
Welcome to Butler Cabin.
All right, here we go.
The table has the largest selection of in-house made products around and everything you need to make a gourmet meal at home. Or pick out a tomahawk steak or a grouper filet and enjoy it cooked to perfection in Chop Shop Steakhouse. Chop Shop, Market and Table, a part of the Wild Food Group, is your butcher, baker, and fish house, no matter where you live.
This segment is brought to you by the Chop Shop, home of the Indiana football and men's basketball coaches shows. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Bob Kravitz playing the, I don't even know what instrument that is, man. I'm not going to lie to you.
Harpsichord. How about the harpsichord?
I'll go with it. It sounds perfect, and it could not go better with Bob Kravitz than a harpsichord. I love that.
Yeah, why not?
And speaking of Bob Kravitz and bobkravitz.com, where you should always be following for constant updates of the Pacers, the Colts, Hoosiers, the Boilers, whatever the case may be. And fresh off the press, hot off the press from bobkravitz.com is a piece about the Colts and Chris Ballard.
Yes.
They have a pick in the in 7 rounds, starting at number 15.
Right.
And you point out that once again that there were no waves in free agency, and if he doesn't reach the playoffs this season, his tenure needs to come to an end. It's kind of they've been kind of like the Pacers minus the playoffs.
Okay.
How's that work?
Excuse me, threw me for a loop there. Like the Pacers, except the Pacers will make the playoffs. No, that does not sound like it makes any sense to me. But they once again did nothing in free agency. Shame on me for being fooled again. I thought that with the largest increase in salary cap and the fact that you've got a quarterback on a rookie contract, they might actually make some moves. Nope, because Chris Ballard does it his way. And I would say that's fine if he had some success, but he hasn't had success. He's won one playoff game. He's never won the AFC South, which is not exactly murderer's row. So it seems to me that after 8 years, now you've got your quarterback. If you can't build a team that's playoff worthy, then you don't deserve to get a 9th year, because 8 years is forever.
Yeah, that's a long, long time, especially in professional sports, for someone to be in that position without having either had previous success and riding on it, or being on kind of a run that looks like it's heading towards it. And there's neither of those.
No. And you look at the other teams in the AFC South. Now, granted, they lost some starters. They didn't re-sign all their players like the Colts did, but they also brought in people like Stephon Diggs and Eric Armstead and L'Jarius Sneed. And the Colts just insist on sticking with their own. And this will be the ultimate litmus test. Can the Colts build a team that can compete for the AFC South? And right now he's leaving it all in the draft. And he's leaving it in the hands of Anthony Richardson, who's coming off shoulder surgery and basically is getting a do-over on his rookie season.
Absolutely. And we'll see how that goes. Lots of things going on in the sports world right now, Robert. And I guess the biggest thing popping at this minute is Kentucky. And they were in the need of a new basketball coach, and they have quickly made the move after Scott Drew turned him down, which again, no surprise there, because I kept asking the question, why would he leave? Leaving freaking Louisville was, I'm like, there's no damn way. No. Even leaving for Kentucky, I was like, why? He doesn't have to live in a fishbowl. He's competing. His program is better than Kentucky right now.
Absolutely.
He's playing for national championships. He's making great money. He lives in a warmer climate. No one's asking for him to resign. So there was no good reason for him to go.
Yeah.
Kentucky reaches out and they do something that I think enough programs don't do. They kind of reached outside the box, but yet not outside the box. They outside the box, but inside the family, right, by bringing in Mark Pope, a former Rick Pitino player on the '96 national championship team. You would think that would bring some feelings of kumbaya to a Big Blue Nation, but no. They had to be, someone like Scott Drew or Billy Donovan or like that. That's because they're not satisfied.
Right. Well, yeah, but in defense of Kentucky fans, now I think Mark Pope is a good solid pick. I think he'll do just fine in Kentucky, but he's never won an NCAA tournament game. He's only been a couple of times with BYU, but he still has not won one. So I can understand, Kentucky people feel that they have a right to the biggest name out there. I'm a little surprised they didn't make more of an effort with Billy Donovan.
Me too. That would require waiting.
They would probably have to wait, but you can get his word. You can make that move. just not officially. But I thought they would make a run at Billy Donovan. They didn't. So Pope is their fourth choice, but sometimes those guys work out just fine, and I think Kentucky's in good shape.
I think that they're fine. It just that's why fans are not allowed or not able to make the hires for coaches. Everything is done on whims and wants, and the world just doesn't work that way, no matter what. So, I think Indiana fans need to be happy that it wasn't someone like Billy Donovan, because that would not have been good news for Indiana fans, as this series is set to resume the season after next,
right?
Which that's going to be interesting when that gets kicked back off. Unfortunately, in that 4-year run, there will be 2 games at Rupp Arena that it took to get that redone, which that won't happen the following time they re-up that series. But there you go, and they've got it going, and that's how it is. The dead period comes to a close today, Bob, in college basketball. So that means visits are going to start happening. Indiana got guys coming in. They're in desperate need of guards. First,
everything.
I was going to say, yeah, they need to fill across the board. But guards and shooters are the priority, and they've got guys that are coming in, whether it's Kanan Carlisle, Miles Rice from Michigan State. You've got the Commonwealth kid from Indiana State, whom his numbers are spectacular. And
yes, he's a bucket, man. He's a bucket.
Rex would rather have Carlisle over Rice. Thinks both would be great. You got Connor Hickman to this group as well. But the numbers that Commonwealth puts out are just stupid good. I mean, this dude shot 40% from behind the arc for across a season. So, and we had where was the comment? I want to pull it back up. Daggone it. But he thought Rex thought that had Anthony Leal been in that same position, I guess at Indiana State, that their numbers would be the same. And I'm like, there's no way you can say that. I don't believe that.
No, I had heard at the Indiana State Seton Hall game that Conwell was probably heading to IU. So, we'll see. I mean, it's such a guessing game now because you don't know how these guys are going to fit together, and this is going to be Woody's most challenging year, is taking a bunch of guys from, God knows where, and putting them together and making them a coherent team.
Yeah, well, yeah, but would that be any different if he brought in 6 freshman recruits?
Well, a little bit. I mean, when you're, when you're recruiting, you're recruiting to your culture, to your team. I think, when you're recruiting these guys out of the portal, you're just looking for short-term fixes for the most part. And it's hard to know how they're going to play together because they're all coming from another program. So
yeah, but everybody's doing that, Bob. That's the lay of the land now. And if you want to look at it, a better example is UConn. They replaced 75% of their offense and 3 guys that went to the NBA with more NBA players, and they not only did they succeed, they won the damn title again.
By the way, I don't know how you felt watching the national title game. I thought Purdue had a chance to win that game. It was a puncher's chance, but I thought they might have one of those 1985 Villanova type performances where everybody gets hot and they shoot 60-70%. Didn't happen. I could tell after the first 3 possessions that Purdue had no chance. They had to work so extraordinarily hard just to get a shot. And UConn, it was free flowing. Their offense, they got to spots that they wanted to get to. I just thought 2, 3, 4 possessions in that game, you could tell which way it was going. Even when Purdue had that 23-22 lead or 22-21, whatever it is, you could just tell that it was a matter of time before UConn put the hammer down.
Yeah, and again, that goes back to me patting myself on the back, like I said in the break, that I had researched. I was looking for something else, but I ended up researching and discovering that at least the last 5 had stopped there, and now the last 6 teams that win the national championship have all had one thing in common, and that is a minimum of 4 NBA draft picks on their roster. And then when you compare that to what Purdue had, you're like, no, it's just athletic elite ability. And I use that over and over for Indiana fans that keep talking about, well, we need to get – what you have to have are elite players, period.
Exactly.
If you want to do what Woody said he wants to do, win Big Ten and NCAA national champions, you can win the Big Ten without it, but you're not going to compete for and win a national champion if you do not have multiple NBA type draft picks on your roster.
Well, they had 3 of them just at the guard position. And that, I did a radio show in Vancouver of all places. I'm very popular in Vancouver.
I'm big in Vancouver.
Yeah, they had me on and I said, I really feel like the 2 centers are going to scratch each other out and it's going to come down to guard play because they have elite guards. Tristan Newton, Stephon Castle, the Cam Spencer kid is terrific. I mean, they've got, and they're all bigger. They're all 6'4", 6'5", 6'6", whereas with Purdue, you're looking at Lawyer, who's a slight 6'4" guy. Lance Jones is 6'1", and Braden Smith is 6 foot. They just could not compete, not in the backcourt, and they put such good pressure on Smith to make it tough to get the ball inside. And I thought UConn played it smart. They did. They had success where other Big Ten teams have not, where they said, we'll give Zach Edey what he wants. We'll single cover him, but we'll take everything else away. And that's exactly what they did. They only had 8 assists the entire game.
Yeah, it was just, you could just tell it was a different level. And something funny, Bob, when Rick Bozich was on with us this past Wednesday, as he is each Wednesday, he made just he wasn't being completely, it was half in jest, but he made the comment that, this was Indiana's worst team metrics wise since 2011. And it was Purdue's best team in 44 years minimum, and possibly ever with their 2-year run. Both teams played UConn this year. The difference was 5 points. They played at different times of the year, but I think that is equaled out as well. But I posted that just out of just to be funny. And boy, there were just a couple of Purdue fans that just lost their mind over it.
As they are wont to do.
Exactly, which I found it to be very funny. But but so much going on with right now, college basketball in Indiana. Mike Woodson has to get this right. He has no margin for error.
Nope. I mean, he's got to get some shooters in here. I mean, I looked at some of the guys who they're courting. I mean, there's some shooters in there. Conwell is obviously a good shooter.
I still say that Conwell, and someone pointed out that Leo was what was his 9 of 19 on threes for 47%. But that's a small sample.
It's a small sample size, folks.
And not only that,
Conwell did it all season.
He's a set shooter. He does not have the athletic ability that Conwell does. He does not have the ability to get to the rim like Conwell would. He does not have the ability to stress the defense.
No, not at all.
There's a huge difference in those players.
Two completely different players. So let me ask you: are you any excitement on your part about this Caitlin Clark stuff?
Who?
Caitlin Clark.
Oh, what about it?
Well,
I mean, what stuff?
She's going to get drafted by the Fever on Monday.
Oh, well, that's good for them. But I like what Diana Taurasi said.
Yes.
Reality is coming.
Reality is coming. Oh,
reality is coming.
I talked with Rebecca Lobo and Andrea Carter yesterday in a Zoom press conference. They both seem to think she's going to be fine, especially her passing ability.
She is a great passer.
I mean, she might be a better passer than she is a shooter, and she is a phenomenal shooter, obviously. So,
but you can't. She set the one thing you've got to give her. She's a hell of a shooter, number one, but she also is one of only 6 female players to have over 1,000 assists.
Yes,
in the game. That's a lot of assists, man.
Yeah,
and that's for someone who doesn't shoot. It's crazy.
She sees the floor. That's what Rebecca Lobo was saying yesterday, is that her passing is going to set her apart from, and now she'll be surrounded by much better players, whether it's Nalissa Smith or Kelsey Mitchell. She'll be surrounded by better players now who can take advantage of her passing ability.
I think it's going to be great for Indianapolis. I think It's going to open up some things. I think that with more interest in women's basketball, which I think will continue, but it's not as gigantic as people think. I know that it was an $18 million viewers for the national championship game for the women versus 14 for the men.
Right.
But there's always that big hairy but, Bob. Overall across the tournament, the men averaged about 10 million per game versus 2 for the women. So extrapolate those numbers out, and it's not close. So big games with big stars. Yeah, that's going to be interesting.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
Do they have these big stars continuing to come now that Angel Reese is gone and Caitlin Clark is gone? I know you got Paige Beckers, but who's going to be her foil?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know women's basketball well enough, quite frankly, to tell you to be able to tell you who's next. Maybe it's Beckers, maybe it's somebody else, but the Fever, 36 out of 40 of their games are going to be on national TV.
I saw that. That's awesome for them, for Indianapolis.
Yes,
Indianapolis. Not that they need it as a sports town. They are benefiting, and it's just going to continue to grow it. But
absolutely, it's going to be a fun summer here in Indy. I'll actually have stuff to write about.
Looking forward to it, my brother. Well, you have a great rest of your weekend.
All right, buddy.
Appreciate you, Bob Kravitz from BobKravitz.com. We're back with Dylan Sinn from the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette after this. Brought to you by our good friends at Chop Shop Market and Table. Chop Shop Market and Table, home of the Indiana basketball and football coaches shows, located just north of Bloomington High School South on South Walnut. Your local meat shop, steakhouse, and caterer. No matter where you live, Chop Shop Market and Table offers a great sit-down dining experience for breakfast, lunch, or dinner, where you can even pick your own steak from the on-site butcher or choose from the incredible dinner specials, of which I had the fried chicken just the other night and the spiced honey barbecue or spiced honey is, oh my God, I put that on my tacos last night. We're back with more right after this.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
If you're looking for a home in... Sorry, John Boy.
Good morning, Dylan.
Morning, gentlemen. How are you guys?
Good morning, Dylan.
Sorry to keep you waiting.
No problem.
Not really. No, just kidding. We're kidding. I kid.
Yeah. By the way, I apologize for Wednesday, Jim. I had a wedding emergency.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
You had to get married early?
Yes, exactly. No, it was we were having a meeting with one of the vendors.
Oh my.
Oh yeah.
Oh boy.
So
I never had that. See, I did not. Well, I should save this just because it's funny. Wedding talk is always funny when men are talking about weddings. See, you're the good husband.
Oh yeah. That's my brand. That's what I do. Oh gosh. Have you guys seen this is unrelated, but did you guys see a couple minutes ago crystal ball for the kid from Stanford?
Yeah, we were talking about
Is that Kane and Carlisle?
Kane and Carlisle, yes, sir.
Yeah. I'm still while there's some peeps on the Andy Moore Honda hotline disagree. I'm a Conwell.
Maybe I'm the idiot, but I think you can get both.
Oh, I think you can. I think they're going to try to get both of those guys and the Rice kid from Washington State.
Yeah, Miles Rice. Yep.
Yeah. If they get all all three of those, yeah.
So then what happens?
Scholarships open.
I know that, but then what happens to Cups, Galloway, and Leo?
Well, they can either jump in the transfer portal themselves, or they'll
come
have
off
to
the
compete.
bench. Come off the bench.
Yeah.
That's we talked all last year about how they didn't have enough guards and they didn't have enough depth.
I'm not saying that it should be a concern.
Yeah.
I'm just not sold that Woody will do that with it. It's tough to see. All right. We're going to find out. Does he care more about the job and doing the best job possible? If he goes after all three, that tells me he cares more about winning and doing the job.
No.
If he doesn't, I'm like, yeah, see, there you go.
All right, here we go. 10 seconds.
Days or get 0.9% APR financing for 36 months on a 2023 Honda Ridgeline. Go to AndyMooreHonda.com and get more to your door.
This segment is brought to you by Remax Advanced Realty, Indy Home Pros team by Cheryl Sizemore. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio. It's Friday. Dylan Sinn from the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette with us, brought to you by our good friend Cheryl Sizemore and Remax Realty. For those in the market for a home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl and her 2 decades of experience. That could be the difference between getting the home you want or not. Reach out to her, Cheryl, at IndyHomePros.com. Dylan, how are you, sir?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on, Jim.
Always a pleasure to have you. And it's better that I guess that you couldn't make it Wednesday because we have more to talk about now. But you mentioned in the break that you had a wedding emergency as Dylan is preparing to get married, and that they had to meet with one of their people that is helping make this wedding great as what it will be. And I told him, I said, that's why you're going to be a great husband. If that had been me, I'd have said, yeah, I don't, you take care of that. I don't care. I could care less what color the tablecloths are going to be. I don't care what color the chairs are going to be. yada yada. I didn't care. I'm the guy that got married in mid-February because it worked out with my rodeo schedule. So that's what makes you the better husband. And I'm no longer married. I might add. So that tells you that story. But welcome aboard, and I'm glad you got that stuff worked out. But it brings us to a day in which Indiana has now two guys that are crystal balled to the program, two guards in Miles Rice and Kanan Carlisle, the latest from Stanford. First of all, those two guys, what do you think of their production?
I mean, obviously they're both. So when the offseason started, my point was basically there are going to be people who tell you can't build through the transfer portal. It's impossible, yada, yada. And my point
and first of all, anybody that says that I'm sorry, I shouldn't say this word, but they're an idiot.
Right.
Yes, you can. Just go look at what Danny Hurley did.
Yes, exactly. And to a certain extent, yeah. And there are other programs that did it, but yes, Connecticut is a great example, right? And so because the refrain you heard a lot was you shouldn't build through the transfer portal, you should use it to supplement. Okay, fine, I get that. You'd rather build through high school recruiting, fine. But there are ways to do it, and one of the ways to do it is get freshmen who have 3 years of eligibility left. And that's what both of these guys have, is they've been in college for 1 year. This is just high school recruiting by another name, basically. You're basically letting these guys it's a farm system, basically. You're calling them up from the lower levels into the majors, right? That's what you're doing, because both of these guys produced in the Pac-12. Now, the Pac-12 was not a great league this year. It was a good one, not a great one. And you have an opportunity now to get these guys and call them up to a higher level, basically. And I think that makes a lot of sense for IU, is that you're going to have these guys who could stick around theoretically for 2 or 3 years, depending on how they play. And so it's not a 1 year rental for either of them, theoretically. And they both produced at the lower level. They both averaged double figure scoring. Miles Rice was also a good distributor. There's shooting talent there. I know that people are worried about the 3-point percentages. I get it. I know. But both of them have shooting talent. Coming out of high school, that was something that they were considered good at. And so I think that a lot of people struggle as freshmen to shoot the ball, right? We saw Fletcher Lawyer at Purdue was a 32% 3-point shooter as a freshman. He was 45% this year, basically. So you take a big jump as a shooter between freshman and sophomore year because you're getting used to the speed of the game, right? So I do think that both of them will shoot the ball relatively well, good enough to space the floor around the big men that IU get. So I do think that I do like both of these additions, if indeed they come to pass, right? That crystal ball is not a guarantee of anything, but I do like both of the additions if they come to pass. And I do think that IU will probably add more guards. I think that they're not done. And so I think that's what is exciting, is that you already have these guys. You already have Trey Galloway. You already have Anthony Leal. You already have Gabe Cupps. Now you're adding guys on top of that and creating depth for yourself, which is something that IU didn't have last year. I think that's going to be the most important part of next season, is you're taking these transfers, you're adding starters, and you're adding depth. And I think that's the important part.
Brett just made a good point. Connor Hickman also in this mix, but if they were to pick up those two guys and say Conwell, or it would have to come down to Conwell and Hickman at that point. You're not going to add four guards. I would not imagine.
Probably not. No, because you still need to add at least a big guy or two. Because right now they don't have a true center. They could play Malik at center. Obviously, that's a possibility, and play a smaller lineup. But you still need some kind of backup, because right now they don't have anyone else on the roster who's kind of in the front court, basically. So you're going to need someone to do that. I do think that that's the case. I think that I know there's interest in Conwell. I can tell you that. And I would not be surprised if he is a priority target for them. So I don't think that adding Carlisle and adding Rice, if indeed they do that, means that Conwell is not an option. I don't think that that's something where you're going to say, well, we have too much guard depth at this point. I don't think that's something that IU is going to do. So maybe you end up with six guards who are potentially starters. Like that is the dream for IU, is to have 6 guys who you could play 20 minutes a game if you need them to. And they didn't have that last year, and you're trying to get that to be a possibility this year. And so that would be ideal.
So then, besides the guards, now you've got what's his first name? Umar
Ballo.
Umar Ballo. You want to talk about a big? The dude's a big. He's 7 foot, 260 pounds, a la Zach Edey. But I'm thinking that maybe I haven't seen him play a lick. So, but I'm thinking that maybe he's at least more athletic. The one thing that I will say about Zach Edey is he has, very, very little athletic ability. He's not an athlete. No, that's not right. I don't mean that he's not an athlete. He's not a jumper. He's not fast. He's not going to be able to run around. But I don't think Indiana is going to do well with a guy that just parks it either. You need an offense. That's why UConn was successful. They had a big and 7'2", but this guy was athletic. He moved around. He had a big wingspan. He could move, and it made a difference. And it makes a difference, especially when you run the type of offense that is needed, one that does move the ball. And so Ballo. Then you wonder, okay, well, what's Renew? He's not a true 5, and I don't know that he could play the 5. Well, I guess he could, but I don't know how successful that would put Indiana in the upper echelon against teams. And then we know he still has a penchant for fouling, and there will still have to be someone either backing him up or in front of him. It's an odd situation. Renew's a tweener. He's not a good 4 anymore. He's not quick enough to be a 4, but he's not quite big enough to be a 5 in a lot of games today.
Yeah, the thing is that he's not a great rebounder, right? And so I don't think
it's unbelievable.
Yeah, and maybe he gets better at that this offseason, right? Remember, he was only a sophomore last year. I think we kind of think of him as a finished product. He got significantly better last offseason. He was much, much better as a sophomore than he was as a freshman. There's every possibility. There's every possibility that he could get better again as a junior. Maybe he comes out as a better rebounder. Maybe he comes out with a better game that makes him a 5 that they can play with that. I know that there's mutual interest with Ballo. I think it would be. Ballo goes in the category for me of you add a good player and you ask questions later, right? Like basically, I don't know how the fit would work there. I don't know how great the fit would be, but Ballo is such a good player. He's so strong. He's so athletic, and he would be a star. I don't know that it's one of those things. Well, we don't fit. Well, you take him and you figure out the fit later. Would be my opinion on that one. Because he's good. He's a star. I've seen Ballo play. He is an absolute superstar.
There's no way that Mike Woodson is going to put Malik Renew on the bench. And then if not, now you're just back to the same old for Indiana with 2 bigs and 2 guards. And that is not going to win in today's college game.
I mean, it's not the worst thing in the world if because Mackenzie Mbako is a shooter, so it's not the worst thing in the world to have him at the 3.
He shoots, but he doesn't shoot it all that successfully. Let's say that.
I mean, he shot better.
Not Mackenzie. I meant Renew.
Right. Like I don't think because the problem last year was that for most of the season, Mackenzie Mbako was not a good shooter, and so you had 3 non-shooters on the floor. I think that if you have
nobody rebounding,
right, and Mbako was actually a decent rebounder. At the end of the season, he became a pretty good rebounder. Once it was clear that Malik Renew was not going to carry the load as the number 2 rebounder, I think Mbako really embraced that, and I think that to his credit, I think that was really good. And so I think that if that's your lineup, you have again, this is way down the road that we're talking here. If you have Ballo, basically, if you have Ballo in Khalil Ware's spot, and then the same starting kind of construction as last year, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world, because I think Mbaka will be a better shooter this year. So you'd still have 3 shooters on the floor. I know people don't like playing 3 bigs. I get it. But just it makes it's Renew is such a weird situation because he doesn't really, as you said, have the size to play 5. And so he's probably better at 4, even though he isn't quite quick enough to do that. So that would be my guess. And that's why they're going after some high profile bigs.
We've got to take a break. I'm wondering if you could stick for one more segment.
Sure.
I don't know if you have time because Zach might be with us, but I want to talk about more of this, but also Purdue, because we've seen 2 transfers now, or 2 guys hit the portal, which I think that is a first for Matt Painter. But
sure,
lots more coming up in the next hour here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Dylan Sinn from the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette with us now. Zach Osterman's going to join us, and much more. Brought to you by Hoosier Hanks East, located over off of College Mall Road in Bloomington. Hoosier Hanks East has an array of custom pizzas, Strom's, baked wings, back bowls, fresh salads, and so much more. Dine in, carry out, or have Hank cater your next event. Hoosier Hanks East is a great place to watch a game or gather with your team after the game. Use their exclusive party room for your next gathering. Order online at HoosierHanks.com or visit them at 1285 South College Mall Road. Back right after this.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
In the market.
All right.
Rex, I disagree. I think that because of his emergence last year, finally getting, he's not a big 4. I'll give you that. He's probably, to be honest with you, Mbako's probably a better 3. Now, I tell you what would be great if they had Larry Nerd over there on that other side for this. Now that's a good stretch 4. The dude is serious at shooting threes.
He doesn't play any defense, though. Is that like, I like him? I get it.
Well,
I know the meme. I get the meme. The Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I get it. He doesn't play any defense at all. Like,
how much defense does Indiana play? Period. Last year. I mean,
well, maybe that's part of the problem. No,
yeah. Rebounding, their guards were terrible rebounders. When you look at the stats on some of these other guys we're looking at that averaged, hell, it may have been Conwell that averaged like almost 6 rebounds a game. I'm like, good Lord.
I'll tell you, Braden Smith is a really dang good rebounder. It's kind of crazy. Like that's one of the
because
things
he misses all of his shots. Kidding. He joke.
What it is he goes and gets the ball is what it is. Like he is really, really aggressive at when the ball goes up, he just attacks it. And like it's honestly pretty. He averaged, as a guy who's not 6 foot, he's listed at 6 foot, he's not 6 foot. He averaged 5.8 rebounds this year. That's really impressive.
Hey, Zach, how are you?
Hey, how we doing?
Good. Dylan's with us for this segment today. Just wanted to.
Hey, Zach, how you doing?
Hey, sorry.
Yeah, I don't know who Andrew. I don't know who put that one out, but that's
what?
Purdue ranked 2nd in a way too early poll next year. That's just not going
any
to
way
happen.
too early poll with.
Well, I understand that, but that one's dumb, in my opinion.
I mean, if they retool, I mean, there's no way any team can't be.
Well, they've got 3 guys that I know of. Who else? How many spots are they going to have, Dylan?
They don't have none. They have 6 freshmen coming in. They are not doing anything with the portal this offseason.
Even though they're losing Gillis and them?
Yeah, so that's the thing is they needed to lose those guys because
they were over recruiting.
They were over the limit. Basically, they knew those guys weren't coming back, and so they recruited.
Oh, here we go. Just sorry, 5 seconds. I lost track of time.
Living.com for more details.
This segment is brought to you by the Ugly Grouper. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. It is Friday. I hope you are ready for the weekend. Of course, brought to you by the Ugly Grouper, located on beautiful Anna Maria Island, Florida. If you're already in that area, or you will be, the Ugly Grouper has much more than just unforgettable meals, including locally sourced seafood. They have your favorite craft beers and cocktails along with live music every day. It's family friendly, able to host private parties, and has the biggest grouper you've ever seen. It's the place to be on Anna Maria Island, Florida. The Ugly Grouper, tell them we sent you. Go to theuglygrouper.com. Welcome in Zach Osterman from the Indy Star, as Dylan Sinn with Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette stayed with us. Zach, we were talking about the many potentials that Indiana basketball is currently looking at, with a couple of crystal balls that have come out as far as guards and Kanan Carlisle and Miles Rice. But then you still have names out there like Connor Hickman and Mr. Conwell, whom I think that, man, Conwell's numbers are just, boy, they sure look delectable for someone that would be looking at that. But then you've got guys like Ballo, who they're going to need someone to replace Ware, or do they stick with this two bigs offense? There are so many questions, Zach, that will have to be answered, but that won't happen until those 6 spots are filled.
Yeah, I mean, you know, there's always an extent when you are going to have to remake your roster the way Indiana has, or is, I guess, at this point. There's always an extent to which your plans have to be based on your results. And, you know, I mean, I remember Nick Sheridan saying something to me not long after he was elevated to Indiana's offensive coordinator position. And we were talking about kind of what offense he wanted to run. And he said, you know, a good coach really should be able to kind of run any offense. It's not about scheme. It's about recognizing basically what your players' talents are, what your players' strengths are, baby. And being able to have like a system and a philosophy that you can stick to, but that at the same time can be sort of flexible to making sure you're putting your players in the right positions. And I think that's just true of probably just about any sport, really, in terms of, you know, excuse me, coaching. And you can have, you know, your principles, you can have your, you know, sort of your theories or your fundamentals that you say, you know, we're not going to compromise on this or this or this, but you've also got to have the ability to sort of look at what you have at any given time and say, okay, how do I take basically those principles and form them around the team I have? If you can get somebody like Oumar Ballo, who is pound for pound as good of a rebounder the last 2 seasons as anybody in the country, including Zach Edey, including, you know, I guess some weird combination of Trace Jackson Davis and Khalil Ware, then, you know, yeah, that might prompt you to think about playing those, you know, more of that too big style again. And I know that Indiana fans get really frustrated with that. I would point out that Indiana's chief rival just got to a national title game starting Trey Kaufman-Renn alongside Zach Edey. So too big offense can work. It just depends on what else you put around it. You also don't have to necessarily wedge yourself to that if you don't get a guy that you think is, you know, necessarily, you know, a nailed-on starter as a 5. You can try to move, for example, Malik Renew to the 5, build some depth behind him, you know, go with more of kind of a guard wing setup now that you've got Bryson Tucker coming in and all these different things. The point is, Indiana needs to just kind of give itself options first, fill some of these spots and give itself options, and then move forward from there and see what it's got.
Yeah, and there's needs in multiple positions, like you mentioned, whether it's the guard spot, of course, which is a priority, as we've talked about, but they rebounding is definitely a spot where they need to fill in, of course, and even though they have signed Bryson Tucker, I'm not sold that they still don't need a solid wing player to because you're not going to have just 5 guys. That's something that Indiana needs to add depth and real depth, and not just guys that can come off of the bench. But Indiana has the opportunity this year, I think, Zach, to do what hasn't been done yet, and that is put together as close to as complete a team as far as abilities that they have, and filling all of the roles that they need filled than they have at least under Mike Woodson, and of course prior to that with Lil Rhodey.
Yeah, I mean, possibly. I'm always nervous about a team that has to bring in so many new players. It just, the numbers on teams whose rosters turn over dramatically. Listen, you have a team like an Alabama, that had, or an NC State that had a ton of transfers, including in Alabama's case, a lot of first-year guys, still got to the Final Four, great season, all that. For every Alabama, there's 3 or 4 teams that had to kind of go, that deep into the portal, had to really dig into remaking their roster, and it didn't work out. And, I think that it's always going to be a challenge to turn over your roster as much as Indiana's going to have to, no matter what happens, here. On the other hand, if you're Indiana, you probably still feel like you've got some good building blocks. You've got a couple team captains and 2 fifth-year players. You've got, a potential all-league wing in Mackenzie Mbako. You've got, I think he was honorable mention or 3rd team, but you've got an all-league forward in Malik Renew. You've got the opportunity here to add a lot of depth. My understanding is, and I don't think I'm the only one that's kind of gotten this kind of information. My understanding is Indiana has a significantly enhanced pool of NIL money, which was already among, if not leading the Big Ten in terms of just sort of overall resources. I think that number has gone up dramatically even since last season. And I think that's one reason why you're seeing Indiana as a major player for, some of these guys that are considered to be among the best transfers in the country, thinking about like a Miles Rice or a Ballo or a Kanan Carlisle or whoever. I'm with you on Ryan Conwell. I also think Connor Hickman, not just because he's from Bloomington, but I remember seeing Hickman in high school and thinking he was a high major player. I think his recruitment got a little bit derailed by an injury and more than that by COVID. He was in that class that just didn't get the exposure it needed at the time when it needed it because the COVID summer canceled everything. The point is, we can sit here and go, name for name for 20, 30 minutes. I think there's, the reason you're seeing Indiana this involved with this many high level guys is because I think they've got opportunity. They've got the appeal of the development that we've seen from some players that have already come through in the last 2 or 3 years, and also the appeal, frankly, of a team. If you come to Indiana, there's a lot of minutes on offer for you, but there's also a lot of talent already there, and so it's not hard to kind of sell the idea that you're joining a team that has the potential to be something more and to grow. And I think they've got good NIL opportunities. But listen, until this is kind of fantasy football season, everybody is pursuing these transfers. There's this parade of visitors coming through every campus in the country starting basically today because the dead period just ended. And you kind of have this, this rhythm of how things work and kind of the transfer window as currently constituted, where there's all of this activity when the portal opens and a bunch of players run in. And then there is just this dead period, boom, right in the middle of it for the Final Four. And it's after that dead period that I think a lot of schools really start to gear up, bringing in visitors, kind of at volume, and Indiana's one of those. And obviously, until you kind of get some of these guys on board, everybody is allowed, all fans are allowed to say, boy, we can get him and him and him and him, and then we'd be fine. The problem is there's 4 other schools trying to get every one of those players. And what winds up happening is you get a few, maybe not every one. You need to re-examine some of your ideas or some of your approach or some of your whatever, and go out and find new targets. And that's where, again, your thinking might refine or change.
And it's hard to look forward as far as overall teams, Dust or Dylan. Purdue they're coming off of the best two years of their basketball program, I would have to guess. But they lose their anchor in Zach Edey, but they're also losing two guys to the transfer portal, which is a first since that has begun with Mason Gillis and Ethan Morton heading out. You lose Lance Jones to graduation. They've got 6 freshmen coming in, and while Jack Benner and those kind of guys are very talented, that's not what wins at the high level. And so I think Purdue is going to take a pretty good step back next season.
I don't know about I don't know about a good step back. I think the bones of a good team are still there. First of all, I think Trey Kaufman-Renn is going to be a really good player. I think you saw that in spurts this season. And, he was, I don't remember what he wound up averaging, but, there were games down the stretch in the Big Ten tournament, in the NCAA tournament even. You think about that Utah State game. He was crucial in that game. You think about, going back to, frankly, I know they lose the game against Wisconsin, but they're probably not there without him. I know that staff really likes his upside, and he's had to do all this, first of all, redshirting last year, the injury and everything, and then this year kind of in the shadow of Zach Edey. And so there's always going to be an extent to which you're having to sort of be sidekick or sidecar to a player that's that good, that's that dominant, that has that, just takes up that much sort of gravity in your universe. I think next season, obviously Purdue will be different, because if you don't have Edey, you have to change your offense. You can't ask anybody else to do what Zach Edey did. We'll see if a guy like Will Berg, assuming he's not going into the portal and I missed it, we'll see if a guy like that or one of these freshmen can kind of step into bigger minutes, or Caleb First. But I do think Kaufman-Renn is going to be a really good player. I think you still got, as long as you've got kind of a solid big and a settled point guard situation with some shooters, then I think Purdue's going to be okay. I think the key for Purdue, again, presuming everybody stays, nobody portals, whatever, that always kind of has to be an assumption this time of year. The big question for me with Purdue is they're starting to stockpile these really athletic wings like Heidi, like Colvin. You look even at their recruiting class, and Kanan Catching's coming in. And I think that my curiosity is just kind of what the direction of travel is there, because it suddenly feels a little bit, that there's always going to be this sort of, there is always going to be this sort of perception of Matt Painter as, big man U and all the bigs they've had come through and the way they build around their bigs and all this. All of a sudden, if you look at it, he's really starting to add, genuine wing talent to his roster, and guys that should be game changers there with their athleticism, potentially their scoring ability, potentially their shooting ability. What's the developmental arc there? And, to what extent is Painter maybe, almost changing the way that he thinks about building his teams, maybe to fit a different kind of position, suddenly saying, hey, if we can get some really good athletic wings, maybe we become a slightly different sort of team. Again, going back to the idea of you can have a system, but really what you have are principles, and then you evolve those principles to fit around the kinds of players you think you need to win and the kinds of players you can get in the door. I think Purdue will still be a pretty good team. I don't necessarily think, obviously, that you can count on them being quite as dominant as they've been the last 2 seasons. If we sit here and go back like just the last 2 years, they have won 63 games. They are 32-8 in the Big Ten. They've won the Big Ten, 3 games clear each of the last 2 seasons. I don't think that's necessarily what they're going to be capable of, but I would be surprised if, for example, we were suddenly talking about like Purdue on the bubble, or Purdue fighting to stay in the top half of the conference or anything like that.
Dylan?
Yeah, I agree with Zach. I think that their position. My thing with Purdue is they're going to be different next year. It's unclear how much worse they're going to be, but they're going to be different. They're going to shoot a ton of threes. They're probably going to play Trey Kaufman-Renn at the 5. And it's going to be an interesting fit to see how because they do have the wings that Zach was talking about with Miles Colvin and Cam Heide and Kanan Catchings coming in, all of whom could be impact players. We don't know how good Catchings is going to be right away. But that's the bones of a good starting five right there. And then you have Braden Smith running the show and Fletcher Lawyer providing shooting on the wing. I do think that that's a starting five. And it's just a question of how the depth fills in behind them. But you talked about Mason Gillis and Ethan Morton entering the transfer portal. That's been expected for basically the entire season. They knew that was coming. That's why they brought in so many freshmen. They actually are still one over the scholarship limit. They need either someone to enter the portal or they need to have one of those high school kids kind of do a gap year, basically. I think both of those are kind of on the table here as they try to get down to that 13 they need. Basically, at this point, it's one of those things where I will believe that Purdue is going to take a huge step back when it actually happens, because I do think that Matt Painter is a good enough coach and they have enough talent that he's going to figure it out. And he spent a lot of time this NCAA tournament talking about, again, what Zach said, which is building around the talent that you have and the position kind of strengths that you have. Basically, he said repeatedly, we're a back to the basket team because we have the best back to the basket player in the country. That was the idea. And they're not going to have that next year. And again, Trey Kaufman-Renn is a good back to the basket player, but they're going to play differently. They're going to shoot a ton of threes. They're going to spread the floor out. They're going to probably run a lot more high pick and roll would be my guess. And I think that they're going to look a lot different. They're not going to be the same kind of back to the basket heavy team that they were, although even then they get up and down pretty significantly this year. It's not like they were a plotting team anyway. So I think it's going to be interesting to see, again, as Zach said, how those wings mature and how that changes what they try to do.
Absolutely. And Indiana should have no problems recruit and finding a guy to fill that role, Zach, because not only of the NIL, but there has been so much coming out about the success of, say, Trace Jackson Davis in the NBA. He's starting now in year one, which, first of all, he was the second to last pick in the NBA draft, but yet he is starting for one of the teams, the dynasty teams of the last decade or so. So that's a good sign. Then you've got Khalil Ware, who is mocked in there pretty well also. So I would think that somebody would be kind of jumping at that chance to fill that position.
Yeah, I mean, I think that should be one of the easier sort of sells. Again, I think the question is just kind of how do you balance, okay, so Mackenzie Mbako's back, Malik Renew's back, Bryson Tucker's in the door. You're obviously targeting a lot of guard talent in the portal and different kinds of guards, combo guards, point guards, shooting guards, shooters, out and out, 3-point guys, whatever. How do you balance all this in the sense of, you do need like a quantity out of the portal, but you still need to have a plan. And it doesn't have to be a rigid plan. It doesn't have to be, this is the only thing we're going to do. This is the one route to success. It has to be essentially just kind of sort of a generally formed idea around which you can fit a lot of different talented players. And if Indiana wants to go with two bigs again, then for that big man specifically, that kind of sales pitch should be pretty easy. I mean, it should not be difficult at all, really. But you need to know when you're recruiting that player, pursuing that player, taking that player, whatever, you need to have at least some idea of how you're going to fit everything else around them, rather than just say we're just going to run it back with what we did last year and everybody will kind of figure it out as we go. And I'm not suggesting Indiana doesn't have an idea of that. I'm just sort of saying, again, this goes back to the question of, plan versus principles and how you get those two things to meet, because both should be, you should have a firm grip on both, but both should be fluid enough that if you need to, to go back to kind of what Dylan was talking about in Matt Painter, if you need to adjust based on having this guy instead of that guy, or this guy got hurt, but this guy was better than you expected him to be, or whatever, that you still have a firm grip on kind of how to mesh both in a successful way.
And Dylan, one of the things I pointed out about having, if you want to compete at the elite level to actually be able to win a national championship, you've got to have NBA draft picks on your roster. And definitely one of those positions is the guard. At least one of your guards, if not both, need to be NBA level players. And that is something that whether it's Purdue or Indiana, whomever we're talking about, that's what you have to have if you want your team to be elite.
Yeah, I mean, and we saw that with UConn this year. Obviously, that's an extreme example because I've said this the last week or so. It's one of the best teams I've ever seen. It's not just the best team this season, so it's an extreme example, right? But Newton and Castle were obviously very, very, very good players, and probably both of them will play in the NBA at some point here soon. But yeah, it's good to have talent in your backcourt. I don't think that that's really any secret. You want to have guys who have athleticism back there that are going to change the game. And obviously IU had that with Jalen Hood-Schifino. I'm not sure. I've not looked super deeply into the eventual NBA prospects of Miles Rice or Kanan Carlisle. I know that both of them have some athleticism to them, so I do think that at least you check the box there. But that's what you're trying to do, right? Is you're trying, and again, this is another Matt Paynerism, and I apologize for kind of continuing to quote him because I've been listening to him talk for the last month here on end. But basically, his thing is you want very talented players who produce, right? It's the combination there. It's great to have talent, and it's great to bring talent in the door. And then you want them to produce on top of that. Because if you get guys who are productive in high school but don't have a ton of talent, you're not gonna win at the highest level. If you get guys who are talented and don't produce, you're obviously not gonna win. And so it's the combination of those two things that you really need. And so I think that's what everyone's searching for.
Last question, and a kind of a different subject. Why and when will the men's game go back to 4 quarters? College basketball is the only sport, is the only part of basketball that does not do this. And so I really don't understand why they have not resorted back to that. And I think it would be probably better for the game if they did, but I haven't even heard of a mention of that being something that's being looked at the moment. Zach?
Yeah. No, I mean, it comes up every once in a while. Obviously, the women's game went to quarters a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, whenever that was. I mean, I've always assumed part of it is just the rhythm of TV breaks because TV governs everything. And if TV said tomorrow that it would rather be selling advertisements based on, 4 quarters with 1, maybe 2 television breaks per quarter, that, there's an extent to which college basketball would just kind of hop to it. I also think if you do move to quarters, I think there's a compelling argument for a 6th foul or maybe at least a situation where everyone gets an extra foul in games that go to overtime or something like that. But like you, I have not heard, beyond just sort of this theorizing, I've never heard anything particularly serious around the men's college game with this. Maybe the women's game moving in that direction prompts a change in thinking, but we'll see.
Dylan, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of the same thing, right? Like it's basically, obviously I think it would be better, but if it hasn't happened, the reason that it hasn't happened is probably because the TV executives like the way it is right now and haven't kind of put any pressure on the NCAA to do it. And so maybe they will in the future if they're kind of the way they advertise changes. But yeah, for right now, my guess is it's going to stay the way it is.
Zach Osterman from the Indy Star. Make sure you're giving him a follow. He is the Star's IU beat writer. And, of course, Dylan Sinn from the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette covering all things, including Indiana, Purdue, Notre Dame. He's got it all. And the 10 caps. Don't forget about the 10 caps, baby.
That's right.
It's baseball season. Not only that, congratulations to Zach. He has managed to get his Atlanta Braves back to the top of the division already early in the season. And he's got big things coming up. I'm assuming, are you still coaching in the Little Five? Someone actually asked that earlier.
Yeah, we'll be 8 days. I guess I need to start checking the long-term forecasts because
you better show up. Are you ready? Is your team ready?
Yeah, no, we're fine. This is the time of year where you do kind of, to use the old cliche, you kind of start to stash the hay in the barn. There's not a lot more progress you can make. It's more about, resting, getting your mindset ready, fine-tuning your strategy, and just kind of putting everybody in the right place, not just physically but mentally, to attack race day the way they need to.
Looking forward to it. Thanks, guys. I appreciate you.
Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Hey, we've got lots more. You bet. We've got more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. We're back with it right after this.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Formerly. Don't forget to split the segments. Did you hear that?
I need to get over the weekend. I'm going to make an order so I don't forget to switch them. Because I need to it's better for me to have it right in front of me which ones need to go where.
You know what? I'd rather start this one with
That's fine. I don't have one that says this segment's brought to you by Autograph yet, too. That's the other thing. You can end it with Autograph if you want. But again, that's why I'm going to add things this weekend.
It does just play. You can play whatever you want.
Okay.
It doesn't matter what you play. I'll just leave that up there as a reminder because I want to make sure man, I'm watching something that's just in a box on a feed, a guy, and he's doing it in a white V-neck T-shirt. Damn it. It's cold, man. I don't think that Purdue is going to I'm not saying they're going to be horrible or anything, but man,
I just think any team right now, and I'm not talking about you, but anyone who thinks any team's going to be a certain way next year. I mean, I think we're in a day and age where you can't predict anything.
I get that, but I'm talking about what they have been.
They won't be what they have been.
They're not going to. They're not going to be close. Because I'd like to know. I'd have to go look and see what percentage of points Edie made up for of Purdue's. And we can do that pretty quickly, actually. How many points a game did they score? All right. So.
All right, here we go. I don't know if Casey Bartley's going to join us or not.
I don't know.
I'm going to have to reach out to him and just see if he wants to continue.
I've texted him twice, man, today.
Yeah, I don't know.
They didn't want to come on and talk about Purdue, I guess. Or get 0.9% APR financing for 36 months on a 2023 Honda Ridgeline. Go to AndyMooreHonda.com and get more to your door.
This segment is brought to you by Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Friday. Hope you're ready to get to it. Don't forget, tomorrow night, happening at Indiana's Memorial Stadium, it's the Full Ride Tour, headlined by is it Zach Brown or Kane Brown?
It's Kane Brown.
Kane Brown, John Party, Jesse Murph, and kicking everything off, our own Clayton Anderson, who was with us yesterday. Always appreciate having Clayton on, man. He's a great dude. And you got to get out there early, by the way. Things are kicking off at 5:30, where it'll be warmer, too. Plus, it's going to be in the 70s tomorrow. So there's that, which is a good thing. You'll be able to get great seats. And you can get them inexpensively, $20 for general admission. There are other things that you can get as well. Indiana Sports Beat Radio brought to you by the Autograph app. Autograph is where real fans get unreal rewards. It's the first app to track reward fans for loving what they love most, turning passion into access and experiences. Download the Autograph app today in either Apple or Google. Autograph is where unhinged fandom meets unreal rewards. We've got the link that, let's see, where is that thing? John Boy, that we can pop that up there. Must be under banners, be at the bottom. Bam, there you go. Did you put it up? There you go. So it's link.ag.fan ISB Media. The code, if they ask you for a code, it's ISB Media. And you get all of the best college basketball in one place. There's tons of articles from different locations, tons of things to listen to, but it's all in one spot. But you can also build up points and get tickets. It's unbelievable, but let's see if we can get some peeps to do this. Download the Autograph app. I use it, like I said, but make sure you download the link a.ag.fan /ISB Media, and always use the ISB Media as a code for that. So we've got those two things going on. Also coming up for you golfers, the annual IU Association of Greater Evansville. John, do you happen to have that?
Give me a moment, but I will.
The Golf Scramble coming up. It's going to be at Sultan's Run again in Jasper, one of the most beautiful courses in the state. It's on a Monday, May 20th. All proceeds benefit local students through their Greater Evansville Alumni Chapter Scholarship Fund on the Indiana University Alumni Association. Again, that's May 20th, and it's early, 8 to noon. You get in, you get out. You can contact Kyle King at kywking@indiana.edu or 812-677-1119. You can see the information there on your screen if you're watching on YouTube. If not, again, that's kwyking@indiana.edu. Easy to remember. And you can get signed up for that. I'm going to be playing there. I know that Colin Hartman's going to be there. There's going to be others there as well. So something good. Dude, I'm telling you, it's a gorgeous course. And when you go there and look at that thing, you're like, oh my. It kind of reminds you a little bit of a certain course that's where a tournament's happening right now down there in Georgia. You may have heard about it. It's called the Masters. Hello, friends. And as a matter of fact, what's happening with the Masters? Well, as of yesterday, your leader, Brian DeChambeau, the big hitter, the long hitter, took the early lead. I think he was 7 under. He finished 7 under at the end of his round. Scotty Scheffler was right behind him at 6 under. Tiger Woods on the board at 1 under, but that was through 13 holes. I think they ran into darkness, had to finish Friday morning. Then he has to restart his second round today as well. So get on to that as the weekend gets further. OJ, we didn't mention this. OJ died. That's it. OJ died. And speaking of dead, the college basketball dead period ends today. That's why all the visits are happening. Boom. It's whether it's this weekend, next weekend, Indiana for Little Five. It'll be interesting to see of the visits Indiana has this weekend. Do they get any commitments out of that? We'll find out after it happens, without question. Miles Rice is one of those visiting this weekend. We'll find out. Ohtani. The Ohtani case took a turn. His former interpreter facing federal charges that he ultimately stole $16 million from Ohtani. Ohtani was only aware of the $4.5 million that he paid for the dude, but it ended up being $16 million. The guy's 19,000 bets he placed. That was ridiculous. How dumb are you? I mean, he's getting paid extraordinarily well. How stupid on his part. But greed is greed, man. Greed is greed. Getting back to the Andy Moore Honda hotline comments. Russell talking about Eric Musselman. He'll be coming to the Big Ten as he is gone to USC. Yep. Pride says, let's also hope Woodson places more emphasis on smoking non-con teams than thanks to the net system favoring preseason more than February basketball. Yeah, that is a great point. I mentioned this somewhere, but Indiana has to pay attention and learn, understand, comprehend, and use the metrics to their advantage. Part of this two bigs thing is you're not going to outscore teams 2-3. So you're kind of under the gun metrics wise right there. You're putting yourself at a disadvantage. Even if you win games, winning games 69-68, especially if they're a Ken Palm 200-300 team, that's not helping your cause. So they need to have an understanding of the metrics. I hope they have somebody on staff whose job it is to just point out, hey, this is where we kind of needed to be. I've heard Mike Woodson several times. He uses set spots. Well, we scored X number of points, so that should be good enough. That makes no sense because every game is different. Every style of game is different. When you play Iowa, that game's going to be a high-scoring game. When you play Virginia or Wisconsin, that's going to be a low-scoring game. So you cannot use the same set of numbers in your head for both of those games. Just like, well, we held them to X. It doesn't matter. You have to understand it and understand the big picture. And I think that is more of a learning curve that needs to happen for Mike Woodson. Yeah. So Andrew says, John Party, classic country. There you go. Anybody coming out to the concert? I mean, what a hell of an opportunity. Seriously, at those prices, I'm telling you, there will be places these guys play this tour that is sold out and the crowd's amazing. You have an opportunity because this is the first stop on the tour, by the way. But this is a great opportunity. What else we got here on the comments wise? I think people are talking about, yes, Sultan's Run is a magnificent course, and you're missing out if you don't go there. like Anthony Leal next year. We're talking about these guards that Indiana need to bring in. His minutes are probably going and should greatly diminish. I don't mean that's nothing against Anthony. But if you are looking at the big picture, and I'm not looking at it from a fan's perspective, I'm just looking at, here's what Indiana has to do if they want to be where they say they want to be. Well, you have to do X, Y, and Z. And to get to X, Y, and Z, you have to do A, B, and C. If A, B, and C does not produce X, Y, and Z, then you need to change. And Trey Galloway is another, very experienced. His minutes should diminish. If you are a fan of Indiana and you want them playing for a national championship, it's cut and dry. It's not about having guys you like, having guys you want, having guys you think are cute, whatever the case is. It doesn't matter. Not looking at it from a fan's perspective, it allows me to easily look at that stuff. I know fans they have their passion, and that's great. But if you look at it from the proper perspective in what has to be done, it's not debatable. It's not debatable that Anthony Leal and Trey Galloway can lead Indiana to a run in the NCAA tournament. That's not possible. I'm sorry, but you have to be NBA elite level. There has to be minimum one guard, if not both, in this day and age, because they're accessible via the portal, number one. And then the other funny thing is, look how many Indiana players, and I mean native Indiana players, are available in the portal that are not coming, that Indiana didn't recruit. You can say Purdue, but they recruited a ton already. But Indiana produces so much talent that it's there for the taking. We've got to take a quick break. Don't forget, brought to you by our good friends at Reynolds Family Dentistry. For our friends down in Southern Indiana, especially in the Sellersburg area, Dr. J can keep you running with that championship smile. Go see him today at Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. We've got more coming up. Back with it right after this.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
In the mark. Ballow's a beast. So long, OJ. Caitlyn Jenner posted good riddance. Seriously.
Here's what I'll say about when people who weren't generally good people die. I mean, yeah, you can have your opinion, but I feel like it's probably best for just to not say anything like that. Just let them be dead.
Well, normally I would agree with you, but in this case, he was a murdering son of a bitch. And
I'm not saying he's a good person, because he was not anywhere close.
Then he got imprisoned for being an armed robber. So just because he was a great athlete, I'm sorry, what he did erases that. More than erases that. But I agree with you most of the time. I would completely agree with you. Absolutely. You've got to be really over the line, like OJ, for that to not be the case. But what I say about the guards, that's another reason why Purdue is not going to be elite. What has happened to them 2 years in a row? Their guards shut down and they weren't exactly killing it. And they didn't exactly kill it in the Alabama game. If they don't have the dominance of Zach Edey, I'm sorry. I agree with you, Russell, but try to teach a dog new tricks, man. And try to, especially to count. Ruff, ruff, ruff. Once you're there, you usually don't fall in the net.
All right, here we go.
What you get there, and it's conference season, yeah. Chop Shop Market and Table has the largest selection of in-house made products around and everything you need to make a gourmet meal at home. Or pick out a tomahawk steak or a grouper filet and enjoy it cooked to perfection in Chop Shop Steakhouse. Chop Shop Market and Table, a part of the Wild Food Group, is your butcher, baker, and fish house, no matter where you live.
This segment is brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville and Evansville. Pizza, burgers, beer. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Friday. Thanks a lot for being with us. Been a fun one already. 5 asking on the comments, why does Jim always think Woodson doesn't understand something? I don't always think that, but why do you think he understands the need of metrics when Indiana was so horrible in them this year? But the reason is because he has never been a college coach until he came to this position. And therefore, metrics were not something that was ever used by him, number one. Number two, they have just recently come to mean even more by the NCAA when it comes to the NCAA tournament time. That's why it's not, again, personal or anything else. It's just the vision, what you see, what has happened, what the results have been. I take the results, I take what happens, and I base my opinions and things off of that. So that's why. But they have the good thing is they have the opportunity to adjust that this year, to not fall victim to it. Scott says the NCAA promoting power conference teams to humiliate lower level teams because of the net is wrong, period, needs to change. The net is can be really stupid, but they did get the top teams right. I don't know how great all the metrics can be, but I think they all add certain positive things, but they all have negatives. But just like if it was human, there would be positives and there would be negatives. So it's easy to, they're all going to have a fall off without question. So there's that. Let's see. Rex doesn't think that Conway, I don't know why everybody else thinks that he is a guy to get. Conwell from Indiana State again. I just, unless his stats were somehow inflated, and that's hard to imagine over the course of 30 games or whatever, how many they played last season. The fact that they just missed the NCAA tournament, they got to the championship game of the NIT tournament. Just numbers speak volumes, But hey, we'll find out. It'll happen within the next couple of weeks without question. Looking over some of these comments and laughing because I don't know what they all have to do, but Indiana football spring game coming up next Thursday. Don't forget, is looking forward to that and the first outing for Coach Kurt Cignetti's squad. Russell says, where is following Ballo? Well, maybe that's a good sign for Indiana fans. Philip thinks Rice is a shot chucker. Well, that only happens if your coach allows it to happen. Well, I don't think that you can. Rex says he watched the ISU versus Drake. They looked horrible. There's always spots where, how many times did Khalil Ware have a bad game this year, especially after a great game? I think that happened more than once. And he's going to be a first-round NBA draft pick. So you can't cherry pick games. It's the overall game. It's all of that overall. So there's going to be so much to keep up with. Make sure you go to thehoosier.com for updates constantly over the weekend as the visits happen and then throughout the week. I'm going to the concert tomorrow night. Looking forward to that. The Masters beginning again this morning. Some of the guys like Tiger Woods still had to complete his first round of play. The peeps on the Andy Moore Honda hotline are going at it back and forth between who's good, who's not, and I love it. But I do wonder about Ballo. He is a sub 50% free throw shooter. You can say a lot about Zach Edey, and one of the things is he was a pretty daggone good free throw shooter. He was a 70+% shooter, which you need from a big guy because you should expect them to draw fouls often and get to the line. But if they're shooting 47% from the line, you better be hitting those damn shots. They better be and ones you're missing, or you're going to be hurting your team. That's my concern of Ballo. He's a great rebounder, but you need somebody that's not a one-trick pony. So what are you gaining by somebody who rebounds well, but is a horrible free throw shooter? And I think that 47% is what you would call horrible. It is. So that's going to be interesting. Is he the only, what other bigs out there? There hasn't been a lot of talk about other guys like that.
I know Aaron Bradshaw was mentioned. I don't know if he's going to follow Calipari to Arkansas or not, but he's a 7'1" guy who was highly rated out of high school. And I believe he's dealt with some injury issues, but he's somebody that also, he was an AAU teammate of Mackenzie Mbako's. So a lot of people thought he might be on the radar for Indiana. But again, I'm not too sure what he's going to end up deciding, but he's somebody I kind of thought Indiana would give a look at.
Hoosier Grill would like for Indiana to give a look to Elijah Malone. We'll see if they do. Buffalo Bill said he may be coming to the IU football game next week. Russell says, are big men or centers known for free throw shooting percentages? The good ones are.
1 minute.
Brian points out Ballo is a 12-10 guy, but not a cardio specimen. That's funny. And Bradshaw has a visit to Ohio State. We'll see. Farrell Payne, that's right. He's been in there as well. Man, hey, another fun day. We appreciate you guys so much. Bob Kravitz from bobkravitz.com. Zach Osterman from the Indy Star. Dylan Sinn from the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette. Most importantly, each and every one of you. Without you, we have no reason to be here. Go to thehoosier.com, like I said, for constant updates of what's happening in Portalville, USA. And, of course, we're back here on Monday to recap anything that has happened over the weekend. So make sure you join us. Thanks to John, the producer, for keeping us between the white lines. I hope you guys go out and have yourselves a wonderful weekend. Until Monday, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.